Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Oscar Hernandez with Houston in Action. I am the community organizer, and today we're having a conversation and a practice and a training over healing justice and racial justice. We want to start off today's conversation uh, grounding ourselves in many ways. One of the first things we would love to share and hear from y'all is maybe recognizing the native land that we are in. So I am in so-called Houston, Texas, the First Nations acknowledgement to the Carrizo, Come Crudo, Taka, Karankawa, the Atacapa, and the Sana people. And if we are actually asking and hoping that all of you can join us in sharing what native land you're coming in from or where you're calling from. I know we have a lot of local people calling in, but we have people from actually out of Houston and out of the state as well that signed up to today's training. Feel free to check what native land you're calling in from or where you stand and actually share it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. If you can share your name, your pronouns, and what you figured out from the native land that you are currently standing in. You can go to native-land.ca and I'll make sure to add the link in the chat. Make sure that it's shared there so we can give recognition to the native land in which we're in. And with that note, I also want to pass the mic on really quickly to Andrea.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you today. I'm Andrea Assaf with Art2Action, and I'm zooming in from Tampa, Florida, which is the land of the Seminole people. And I would like to read a land acknowledgement from Alternate Roots. We acknowledge that we benefit from the wealth created from the forced removal of Indigenous peoples across this continent. We pay our respects to Indigenous peoples past and present, and future, who are the stewards of these lands. We also acknowledge enslaved Africans stolen from their homelands whose forced labor helped to build this country. The ancestors and descendants of these people have and continue to weave the fabric of our culture. As we grow through the work of decolonization, we invite you to learn with us about the lands where we currently live and build relationships at the speed of trust with the stewards of these lands as we move from acknowledgement into action. We also encourage you to visit alternateroots.org if you don't know about roots. Back to Oscar.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And thank you for the practice and for sharing. Please, everybody, check the chat as Andrea, if you can also share the link for where people can check what native land they're calling in from. That is native-land.ca. It's an amazing map that you will be able to give you a big insight into where we're calling in from and what native land we're standing in. Within that, I want to do a quick introduction for those of you who are new to this space as Houston in Action and give an idea of who we are and what we're trying to do. So as Houston in Action, we are a collective impact organization. By this, I mean is that we work with a lot of different nonprofits across the greater Houston area. These are just to name a few that we work with us. We're very fortunate to have so many partners and members, organizations who have credibility and have a long-standing and local issues that affect our communities. We want to fight for our communities of color, alongside our communities of color, and to ensure that our communities can live a full civic life. Whether that means participating through the census, as we just saw, was a uphill battle, as well as it has been through the elections, which actually brings us to why we're here today, as a follow-up to what we've been seeing. I also want to ground ourselves within our working principles. Through Houston in Action, we start all our spaces with acknowledging our working principles. And our intent is to make sure that as a group, as an organization, that we remember how and why we work together. And my favorite working principle that I'll be highlighting today is equity and systems level change. So what does Houston in Action mean by equity and Houston's level change? It means actively working to balance the civic power by changing systems that affect civic participation amongst communities who have been historically marginalized because of racism, sexism, and other forms of discrimination. So this is our intent, and I truly believe that out of everything that we're doing, systems levels change in a way to make sure that everyone has accessibility. It's one of our biggest goals, and how we see how we're supporting our community. So we have a few community agreements. For those who might not know what a community agreements, it's really about how we want to participate in this space. To understand why we're here, that we have common values, things that we want to share. We want everyone here to be present as possible, as present as we can all be through Zoom, and to really stay grounded in what we're trying to do today. So it'd be great to keep these community agreements as we go through today's trainings and how we want to share. How we're going to have communications actually back and forth, and some practices that you'll be going through today. So one, don't make assumptions. Please ask questions. We will be using the chat portion to ask any questions. So if you have any burning questions, feel free to just ask through the chat in Zoom in the group chat. For most of you, that might be on the bottom of your screen. Some of you might have it on top, but if you click the chat, it'll be able to share through all the participants, as well as picking a participant or a panelist if you want to share something with them directly. I do just want to note that we are able to see the discussions in the chat once the training is over. So just keep that in mind. Value progress over politeness, as we want to make sure that we're moving the process. Today's training in a way that works for everybody. Focus on the issue, not the person. Acknowledge multiple truths. This is also understanding that maybe someone's truth or something that you hear today might not necessarily be something that aligns with you, but acknowledging that someone else is going through that experience and that maybe doesn't have to align, or the way you feel doesn't have to align with someone else. They can both be true. Listen and understand others. A big part of what we're trying to do for today is listen, but we do want you to participate. So keep in mind in how our communities are impacted. Everyone has a voice, or contribution is important. So we do want to hear from you. I do want to stress that out. We would love to hear from you. We will have a Q&A portion towards the end. If you have any questions, you're totally open to unmute yourself and ask. But to keep track of it, I'll also be keeping it through the chat. So please just ask any questions through the chat, and also keep a long-term focus. I know that might be a little difficult to how we're thinking about healing today, but this is part of a deeper process that we want everyone to continue with practices even after today. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We hope that we can keep these communities agreements throughout the meetings. If you have any other community agreement you want to offer, please add it in the chat. I'll make sure to keep track of that for next trainings or next conversations. And again, thank you for joining us. So I'm gonna move it on right now and pass it on to Andrea so she can go over the agenda.
So welcome everyone. Today, I think we are all in need of grounding and reflecting and readjusting, recentering ourselves. I know that I certainly am. I just spilled water all over myself during that introduction. So as my dear friend Kim Pevia, who you will meet in a little while, says, creator got jokes. So this is my reminder that I need this grounding session today, and we hope that you all will enjoy it too. We've just finished the welcome and overview. I'll be introducing our amazing guest speakers in just a moment. And first, Kim Pevia will speak first, walking us through some grounding exercises, as well as knowledge and information and the idea of reclaiming medicine, among many other things. And then we'll have Sharon Bridgforth with us to talk about healing in creative practice and give us some tools for that. And then we'll have a little bit of time for the panelists to talk to each other, as well as some questions from all of you, which if you have at any point a question, you can put it in the chat, and Oscar will be helping to keep track of questions, and hopefully we'll get to answer some of them at the end of the session before doing next steps. So that's our overview for today. And we can go forward to the next slide. And as I said, it'll be a mix of receiving some information, some knowledge, some ways of thinking about things, and also some practices, which you can participate in today or take with you as part of your toolbox going forward. But we want to pause for a moment to say, Houston Action Art2Action has been in this collaborative partnership for a little over a year, and what a year it has been. And we wanted to take a moment to say, why healing justice? In the midst of all the organizing work that all of you are doing, all the creative work, all the activist work, why do we need to spend a little time talking about and understanding healing and what it has to do with the process of creating a more just world. And of course, why racial justice and why now? We all know that the summer we have been through, the uprisings we've seen in response to police killings, the incredible historic voter turnout that we've just had in this past election, all of it points to how far we have to go. And as we hopefully take some moments to celebrate small victories, we also know there's a long road ahead. And we believe deeply that we will do the work better if we ourselves are grounded and whole and centered. And in order to do the work of racial justice, we need to do some of our own healing and understand how healing happens. In order to do the work of mobilizing our communities, we have to understand what our communities need to heal from. So that's why we planned this moment, this post-election moment, to focus on healing justice through a lens of the racial justice work we have been doing in the Houston Action Community in Action trainings. So that's a little bit of framing. Oscar, did you want to add anything?
Yes, and really, so I am actually grateful to be in this space today. It has been a really rough last 500 years, as y'all might already know. But especially like this last couple of weeks with work and how we're engaging our community and what the elections means to a lot of our people. Everyone that I know that's here, it's not about the communities we serve, it's that we are the communities we serve, and the same traumas that a lot of our people relived and have been reliving through these last couple of weeks. Like, we feel them. I'm not absent to that. I can share that in my family. My young niece, who's barely 11, was extremely, like, her face changed when the results came from the election, and she kept screaming, and I don't think she fully understands the political atmosphere in which we live in, but she understands enough to know that her uncle was stressed out about it and that her family is worried. And to me, that means a lot. And what we hope to do through all of our trainings, and as we talk about community organizing, digital organizing, the work that we've done around the census, voter engagement work, like, all of this is also part of a recognition that taking care of ourselves and taking care of our community is just as important as everything else that we do. And in giving us the time to reflect and to be in community together, and to heal and to hear from other people that have gone through the things that we've gone through, it's really valuable, especially right now. And hopefully this space, if at the very least, provides a break from what's happening, and that you're able to participate along with us and join us in something that might give you a sense of relief, that I hope would be as valuable that you can bring it back to your communities and to your family. So I do want to thank Andrea for all the support that she's done, and also our amazing panelists that y'all will get to meet in a minute. But I also want to thank all of you for, even though the fact that we're on the Zoom, that we're distant, but this is going to be a bit of a vulnerable space for some of us, which is totally fine. So if at some point you want to turn off your cameras, that's totally fine too. If you want to feel what we're going through, that's fantastic. But I couldn't have picked a better group of people to be going through this session with than everyone who is joining with us today. So I want to thank all of you for joining us.
Thank you, Oscar. So now I get the pleasure and honor of introducing our fabulous guests. And you're gonna see, you can go to the next slide. You're gonna get to see a bio, and I'll also drop it in the chat. But we decided among ourselves that we'd like to do relational introductions. So I get to tell you about how I know these folks and why I invited them to join us today. So first, Sharon Bridgforth is a very deeply respected and revered creator and director, playwright, and theater artist in the national arts community, an award-winning artist, a leader, an elder, a mentor, a visionary, whom I have had the great pleasure of admiring from a distance and also getting to know and collaborate with through the National Institute for Directing and Ensemble Creation. And we share artists that we love and admire. And every time that I'm in a space that Sharon Bridgforth is in, and I know this space needs some grounding or healing or blessing, I know I can turn to Sharon because it's a core part of how Sharon does her work, creates and inspires new generations of artists. So you'll get to hear from and be with Sharon a bit later in our program today. But first, we're gonna get to spend some time with Kim Pevia. And you can go to the next slide. Kim is an amazing speaker, guide, teacher, leader that I met through Alternate Roots. And I actually remember the moment I met Kim Pevia because we had all just seen a performance that was all kinds of problematic around representations and cultural appropriation of Indigenous culture. And I was going to a talk back where I was supposed to get to talk about my work, but I saw Kim and 2 or 3 other Native Americans sit down in the circle with their arms folded. And I thought, oh, I know what conversation we're about to have. and it's not going to be about me, and that is okay. And that since that moment, Kim has been an important voice and leader in the community of Alternate Roots, as well as a facilitator and trainer that I've had the pleasure and honor of co-facilitating with in Equity Quotient and other circles. And so it is a great, great pleasure to get to introduce Kim Pevia to this community today. So welcome, Kim. Say hi. How you doing?
Hello, everyone, and hello, Andrea and Oscar. Man, thank you both for your beautiful introductions and your words. And Andrea, that's, I guess, now that I'm thinking back on it, where I first got to witness your grace, because yes, you had this beautiful piece of work that was on display, and then all of a sudden, another conversation, and you were so graceful in letting that be. Yeah, so thank you for that, and thank you for the reminder for that. Yeah. Whew, I'm just going to lean in, ground myself, and look at all y'all's beautiful faces. I hope it doesn't feel intrusive. And if you feel comfortable with it, you can lean in. I see people that I know, my friends and future friends. Yeah, we can find ways to warm up these cold Zoom spaces and connect with each other. We can wave and like use your left and right arrow button to not just see the faces in front of you, but the other ones and the names of folks who are choosing to be off camera for this moment. Let's just kind of, yeah, warm up our space. Yeah. Wow. 2020. Whew. I get on these calls and people are like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm feeling all the things. Like there's not even language, right? It's like Andrea said earlier, I named 2020 the year of creator got jokes, because no matter what, it was a sort of moment. And yeah, and Mercury in retrograde and everything. And yet so much opportunity for learning and growth. And what a ride, not only 2020, but this week has been. I mean, remember what we were all holding a week ago, and then now in this space. And for many of us, today has probably felt like a week or a month or a year, because they're just all kind of seeming that way these days. So let's just take a breath, just because we can. Let's just take a breath. Let's just plant our butts in the seats and just breathe. Find something beautiful in front of you to just gaze upon for a second and feel the aliveness in your body. And engage with the beauty of that, whatever it might be, art, child, pet, color. Yeah, just to remember to breathe. I was on a call the other day with the Southern Movement Assembly, and one of the frontline workers said, who's a woman of color, she's like, we just don't even know how to breathe. We're so used to go, 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 to do, whatever it takes. We're activists first. But to breathe, somehow feels like a luxury. We don't give ourselves permission to breathe. And I repeat, for some of us, to breathe feels like a luxury. Woo! Some of us even say, I ain't got time for that. No time for that. And yet think about it, without our breath, we aren't here. We're dead. I mean, we're not here without our breath. This very sacred thing that we often forget. So let's just take a moment to breathe again, because we can. Because it's safe. Inhaling and exhaling. We'll be breathing a lot together today. We'll breathe for those whose breaths were taken this summer. We'll do a lot of breathing today. And thank you, Oscar, for putting our little breathing device up there. I am going to ask you to, you can continue to screen share if you choose to. Actually, no, I'm going to ask you to stop screen sharing there, Oscar. Because what I want you to do is reach for your grounding tool, your grounding object, if you brought one. And show it to us. Like whatever you brought to ground yourself. If you don't have something with you, you can go grab it really quickly if you want to, or locate it with your eyes. And since we haven't been able to be together in space, every time I do these, and my yard is now full, but I prepare the 4 sacred herbs for healing and I put them in a shell. And then I ask you all to hold your grounding elements and to breathe your intentions for us in this space, for us as our healing practices, for us going forward into this shell. I will burn it afterwards, sending our intentions up, and I will take half of it and scatter it into the earth around my garden. So you will be in the food that I am eating, and I will return the other half to the ceremonial fires once we return to the sacred fires of my culture. So if you would blow your intentions into the shell. Thank you all. And why do we ground? You know, we ground, and what are we grounding into? We ground because colonized mind has us living so much in our heads that we have absented our bodies. So grounding and returning to the breath is really about reminding ourselves that we are whole human beings, that we want to show up whole and grounded. And why ground again? I consider grounding like a spiritual smell. So I don't want to show up to a space stinking. So I practice grounding. And if I had to choose between grounding and showering, I would probably choose grounding. Because I figure y'all can tolerate my smell a little bit better than if I'm not grounded, my energy being off balance. So it's just this reminder, you know, to be fully embodied and to remember that as part of our practices. And Grace Boggs, who is I just think a brilliant teacher, because she often talked about seeing things from a holistic point of view so that we don't create another other, which is a quote from M.K. Wegman, also a friend of ours at Roots. But she talks about the work of the 21st century is to become more human beings, which means that we get to be more integrated, we get to be more whole, we come fully present with what I call awareness of our pieces: physical, intellectual, emotional, creative, energetic, and spiritual. Like these are the ways that we're showing up, and to invite ourselves back into wholeness as we participate in this race equity work. And for me, this work it's my calling. You know, it's guided by my past and future ancestors, and I ask that they guide us in this work today. And this work of healing work, it requires, you know, some self-reflection and some necessary truth-telling. Yeah. So Oscar, now would be a great time to start that PowerPoint. Oscar, would you screen share and start our PowerPoint there? Oscar, so chill. I love it. Yeah, so we're just going to take a breath before we move into this, because we're going to move from the challenges of just having these conversations to maybe naming some things that we don't even really know that are in the soil and the conditions that we're trying to create race equity from. So taking a deep breath. So notice at the bottom, it gives us instructions. This is a handy dandy tool. So when we come at the top, we'll begin together and we'll do 2 revolutions. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. It's a long hold. We're stuck there. Exhale. Hold. And returning. Next slide, Oscar. You know, we've tried to teach our brains to think about race, but this white supremacy culture doesn't live in our thinking, it lives in our bodies. And so working with healing justice and embodied practice reminds us to not only do this work with our heads, but to also do this work with our hearts and in our bodies. Because this thing that we're trying to liberate ourselves from and liberate ourselves, this new world we're liberating ourselves to, has to account for what has happened inside the racial inequities. So this challenge lives inside of our bodies, not inside of our thinking. Oscar. But the amazing thing is that our bodies have incredible amounts of wisdom and can actually be very important guides for us along this work. And Bessel van der Kolk began some of the earlier work in collective trauma and offered us this. If we began to approach our body with curiosity, like what's really going on in my body? What's that tension here? What's that feeling here? What's that tightness here? Why am I all of a sudden having pain in my lower back? What is that crunchiness I feel when that is happening? As we began to approach our body with curiosity and bring it back into integration rather than fear, everything shifts for us. It's a whole new piece of wisdom that colonized mind has us absent ourselves from. Next slide. And why? You know, ACE indicators are really 10 questions that talk about what our challenges have been through our whole lives. And on the left, folks who've had challenges, whether it be incarceration, domestic violence, food insecurity, they have those challenges. Those of us who are in Black and brown bodies of cultures or people of the global majority, our social and traumatic location happens actually before conception. So if you'll notice the black line running horizontally, that's conception. Our stuff is actually in our DNA and in our genes and in our cells. So we have historical trauma, we have epigenetics. These are things that are actually unnamed in us that might be contributing to sorrow in places that we haven't even had names for so long, for things that we carry. And it gets all balled up and tied into things that we don't really understand and can't have words for. It can feel like a lot to try to drag all this up and show up in a place and appear like the dominant culture expects us to appear. This is what we're dragging. This is why it's important for us to do the work. And so not only is it happening before conception, if you take a look at the blue upward arrow on the right-hand side, added to that are microaggressions, implicit bias, and epigenetics that we experience and witness and are part of every single solitary day. So what does this work have to do with race equity work? I say everything. I say everything. Yeah. Next slide. And pay attention to where your curiosity is around this work too, because this is like a whole lot of work we're trying to give you in a 20-minute soundbite. So, and then with some practices as well. So whatever feels interesting to you, pull on that and give ourselves permission to feel, you know, the things that we need to feel, to heal, to get on the other side of it. For me, it's about justice and liberation. Emotional justice and liberation is that we get to name what we get to name so we don't have to deny it. And then we get to be liberated from it. You know, once we name it and heal it, then it doesn't control us anymore. And all that power and energy that we had to keep denying, which colonized mind has us do, we get to use in creativity. Like, look at what we're doing already. Imagine if we're not dragging all that. Yeah. Next slide. So what happens with the racialized trauma in the body? It's in 4 locations. This is the work of Resmaa Menakem from my grandmother's hands. If you do not know that work, it's beautiful, brilliant work. We'll send with some resources. Just look him up. There's so many things, YouTubes, and his work is brilliant. He took psychology and married it with racial trauma in the body and is delivering really beautiful work. So historically, what he says is that our epigenetics, what our ancestors were doing 18 generations, is moving in our body. So think about it. What were your people doing 18 generations ago? Were they powering over? Were they being powered over? Like, what in the world? So that's moving through us. It's also intergenerational. So whatever my mom's experiencing as I'm, germinating in her body is moving through, and whatever her mother's experience of that, it moves through our nervous system and it becomes our culture. It might be a culture of anxiety. Think about how many of us just kind of carry some generalized anxiety and maybe not even know why. And then it also comes in the persistent institutional systems. Like, we really wrestled with this sucker this past week. That was a big wrestling of the systems and structures that had us wondering, hey, are we safe in here? Like, what's going on? And then it also happens to us in the personal interactions we have with folks and the microaggressions. And on a previous call I had this morning, somebody said, can microaggressions be inadvertent? And I said, they almost always are. And our challenge is to sit with them when we're challenged with them, and let that ego death dissipate until we can have a new learning. But yes, we do it. We step on it. We mess it up. And then we all have our own internalized ideology, whether it be oppression or suppression. So we're either going to have a I'm better than or I'm less than ideology. Next slide. And these are some things that we don't really talk about either. The truth is that the presence of fear signifies the absence of safety. And so why are we not safe? Because really the white body being the standard of humanness is wounding the bodies of culture. Like, that's some of the stuff we have to heal from. Most Black and brown bodies are just now getting some relative dominion over ourselves. Our stuff has been taken for a really long time. And folks have had unfettered access to Black and brown bodies in the orifices, the work product, policing, every idea stolen. Not just in this instance, but in past generations, all coming here now. And if we're honest, this is the implicit bias piece that we don't talk about often enough. White bodies and bodies of culture often do not feel safe around each other. As we do the healing work, we can calm ourselves and we can bring that to a different way of being. But this helps explain some of the energetics that are happening that we don't even understand, because it's there in the soil. Next slide. Yeah. So Resmaa talks a lot about the vagus nerve or the soul nerve. And I think of it a lot like a thyroid. It's like our emotional and spiritual thyroid. So we know when our physical thyroid is off, a lot of other things are off. And this is really, it's a part of our physiology. And it's directly connected to the brain, but it's not tied to reasoning. So it's tied to those energetic things that we come to understand. There was a brilliant piece of work by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who had a stroke, and said that when she lost her linguistics, she was able to know who was there for healing reasons and who was not, just by the energy that they brought. And so as we heal, we get really clear about people's energy and those intuitions, and especially those of culture, those things that we know that exist not only in the material world, but in those other worlds, become much more accessible to us as well. And it's also tied to our immune system. It helps us regulate and co-regulate each other. It helps us generate different resting energies for each other. So our individual vagus nerve and our collective vagus nerve has been so activated in 2020. So think about having our thyroid out of whack in 2020, and we didn't do anything to get it done. So this is what's happening to us collectively. Next slide. But we can heal in and through our bodies, our cultural work. So somebody asked earlier in the workshop that I did, does culture help or hurt? White supremacy culture has hurt. our cultural experiences, our cultural expressions can be the healing mechanism. So white supremacy culture can hurt our bodies. How can we heal? Through our bodies with our own specific cultural expressions. Next slide. Yeah, so now let's just take a breath, you know, like hold it for a beat and see what comes. And as we thinking about all those things we just talked about, as we just sit with it, it can begin to expand or enlarge our capacity to heal ourselves, to help co-regulate for each other. It generates more resourcing energy just when we can calm ourselves, when we can bring ourselves into a grounded state. It not only serves the other, it serves us, because then I'm actually able to access the wisdom of ancestors, the wisdom of the universe, the wisdom of the birds and the trees. They're all trying to inform us and call us towards health and wholeness. Beautiful. Next slide. So body care and self-care are essential work. I mean, it's not it's not a mamby-pamby exercise. Like I said, grounding before showering might really be a cool t-shirt. But body care and self-care are essential to this work. Next. And Audre Lorde, who we can all whoop whoop, says caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. That in and of itself makes me want to do it. It is an act of decolonization. It is an act of liberation. Next slide. So practice, it's a matter of practice. How do we build practice into our days, whether it be ground in between meetings, whether it be get up and have a spiritual practice in the morning, whatever that thing is, how do we continue to do that? And how do we honor everything that we've been taught? And how do we allow our cultural knowledge and wisdom to come through? Thank you, Oscar. That's, I think, the end of that slide. Yeah, just even in that way of cultural medicine. So last August, before Alternate Roots, Andrea and a bunch of us gathered up in Asheville, and a mutual friend of ours actually came around for Ed Azul. What's her name? I'm drawing a blank, Andrea.
I'm sorry, which person?
Azul.
Camille?
Thank
Camille
you.
Schaefer?
Camille
Yes.
Schaefer at Azul came around the corner. Oh, and I see many people who are actually here carrying snake medicine. And snake medicine in my culture means that things are going to shed, that things are going to shift, that things are going to be new. And so literally to have someone round the corner and hand me snake medicine last year, I was like, ooh. And then Carol McCord and I were sitting in, who did the other workshop for some of you, we're sitting in New York in January, realizing how warm it was. And we were like, ooh. I said to her, in my culture, warm winters mean deep graves. So there was also like some whisperings from ancestors and culture too, coming ahead of this thing, you know, warning us about what was happening. And, you know, the more we heal, we'll realize that there's just a lot of wisdom for us in the healing space. Yeah, I want to offer that. And again, just giving ourselves permission to breathe, taking one more breath. Grace Lee Boggs, who I mentioned before, who actually has a great PBS special out right now, did a lot of work in Chicago. And the first time I heard it, it kind of was prickly for me. And for me, when things are prickly, I think of it as an opportunity to investigate something. So she commented that the downfall of activists is that they overvalue action and undervalue self-reflection. And I was like, oh, that stings, which probably means there's some information for me there. Because it's easier to go, 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 go. And then when I thought about that, I actually thought about, then if I'm going, going, going and doing, 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 what's the energy that I'm showing up with? And is it contributing to the frenzy of the world? Or is it contributing to this place of living together in some semblance of harmony? And how can we hold the complexity of doing the work and also not taking the master's tools into this new place that we want to create? Yeah. So I think that's, I'm going to stop there. Just want to queue up a video as a cultural offering from my community. And thank you so much for populating the chat. I'm always dropping stuff, so just pick it up wherever you can. It's like and then pull that thread. But my friend Kay Little Turtle did this for me for the Southern Movement Assembly, but it has such good medicine. I really want us to reclaim our medicines. Our medicines are our culture. It's our food. It's our space. It's our singing. It's our dancing. It's our pets. It's whatever brings you peace, joy, harmony. Let's reclaim the word medicine. White culture took it and said, you have to be a doctor. That's not true. We knew medicine before they knew medicine. So just wanted to offer this good medicine and then, yeah, pass it over to the beautiful Sharon. So, yeah.
Chwana skana he wagachinedi gene gire disne wagachinedi nyathwet ke little turtle gianthe da wis disa sete. My name is Kay Little Turtle. I'm Snipe Clan, and I come to you from the Lumbee Tuscarora Nation of Robinson County, North Carolina. I want to give thanks and greetings to the Southern Movement Assembly. My sister Kim Pevia reached out to me and asked if I would give some words and some good medicine for all of you. Normally, you know, I would love to do it in person, but with the COVID-19 pandemic that's going on, a lot of things have to be done virtually out of safety. So at this time, I'm going to give you a song because we believe our songs are good medicine, or some of the best medicine that we can give. And this song actually is going to have a vocable part, and then it's going to have some words that's going to uplift you and encourage you all during this time. Remember that darkness can't defeat the light. Hey,
Thank you. Back to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for all that knowledge and wisdom, reframing, and the gift of that song. I do feel like that being able to witness that song was a tremendous gift right now. And I thank you for bringing it to us and sharing it with us. And all those reminders of what medicine is. Singing is medicine. Deep breathing every day on a regular basis is medicine. Meditation, sacred pause. I saw somebody drop in the chat. All these shifting our ways of being is important to our healing, both physically and emotionally and culturally. And I'm so grateful for those reminders today. And with that, I'm going to welcome Sharon Bridgforth to share her wisdom and creative knowledge and practice with us. Sharon, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I invite us to just breathe again together. Breathe in, deep breaths, and breathe out. And maybe take another one, and in our breathing, offer out gratitude to Kim and all that holds her for all that she just gave us. Thank you. Make sure that you have a journal or something to write with close by. Kim, I needed that. I thank you. I was gonna say I'm honored. I'm gonna say I am full and in much gratitude. Thank you. Andrea, you know I love you. All these years we've been walking and working together. Thank you for always lifting me up and bringing me in. Oscar, it has been so wonderful to learn about your work and to be in conversation with you. I'm so grateful for what you're doing and so proud to be here. And to all of you and all of the communities that surround and hold and walk with you, I thank you. I'm gonna offer prompts for you to walk with. So things for you to write down. You won't have time to respond to them during our time together, but you can think of them as journaling prompts or walking prompts, things for you to marinate on and breathe into and be with, and to see what information these prompts or these questions offer you as they move through you. I have to thank not only, I'm here because so many people loved me and prayed me here. My ancestors of light and progress, the divine forces of nature, all that is good and whole, and everyone that chose to take me in and claim me has helped me to be here and to be whole and well in this moment. I'll just name a few people. Lori Carlos, Raul Salinas, Anna Cisnet, Robbie McCulley, Marsha Ann Gomez. And with Marsha, I want to pause. Marsha was, and I use past tense because she's passed, she was a sculptor and environmental human rights, indigenous peoples activist, a world leader and shapeshifter and changer, and someone that took me in and loved me and I got to walk with and work with. I invited Marsha to do the set design for my very first piece that my theater company did. The theater company was called the Root Women Theater Company, and this was in probably 1991. And Marsha looked at the script and she talked to me and she said, "Girl, you just trying to pray." She said, "I'm gonna make the set an altar and just don't ever let the actors leave the stage." And with that, it was like everything synced up and I understood so much more about my purpose, about my own creative intention, and it set me on a spiritual path. And I think about that and I return to that all the time. Girl, you just trying to pray. So what I want to invite you to do is just the prompt. So just write the prompt down. Who are some of your mentors? Now, my mentors, they used words like big sister, like I think they rejected the word mentor because really the relationship was so much like family. So feel free with anything that I say to make it authentic for you. Just write this down. Who are some of the mentors that shaped your ability to be present in this moment doing the work that you are doing? Who are some of the mentors? that helped shape you and for you to be able to do the work that you are doing. And then pick one and reflect on one thing that they taught you that has been instrumental in aligning you on your path. So name them and then pick one, and then identify one thing that they taught you that has been instrumental in aligning you on your path. Bless you, Oscar. And I should say, Andrea or someone, I probably need you to write these prompts down too, because if somebody asks me to repeat them, I don't know that I'll be able to, because they're coming through the air.
We catch them with you dropping.
Okay, good. Thank you. Which you opened. I think everything that I do, I now in reflection know has been my soul's desire to grow through, understand, and celebrate my ancestors and our journey. So I specifically write and create in performance African-American Southern migration stories. And my examination of those stories has healed me and is a work in progress. We're still working on that. But what I have come to know from reflecting on, doing research, close examination, being in collaboration, being in front of audiences with the work, applying all of my background as somebody that started as a community organizer in the work, is they knew everything. And so it's like, I just want to tell stories as good as they told stories. They really activated space and opened portals and allowed time to hold us in the way that they told stories. But the thing that I want to offer here is that looking back, what I see is that joy was a transgressive tool that they employed to ensure our survival. And not surviving in a dragged way, but in a vibrant, self-determining way. So the prompt that I want to offer you in conversation around this is, what is it when you reflect on your growing up time? Because not all of us were raised by our families. So please don't be expansive and just follow what is real and true for you and what is aligned. But thinking about your growing up time, what is it that you now can see, name, talk about that that you are rooted in an expansive and good way? What have you learned? I'll offer a couple of more, and then I'm going to pull some cards, and then we'll shift. One of the people that I've had the privilege of walking with that has really, really been a place for me to lean into and learn from is Robbie McCulley. And you would just really need to look her up, Robbie McCulley. Robbie, I was complaining one time, this was back in the 90s, late 90s, and I was just like raging. basically. And I said, Robbie, how do you do this? How do you continue to make work and live in the world and be so graceful? And she looked at me and she said, lay your weapons down. And she walked away. Now, if you know Robbie, what you know that means is she didn't mean don't stop fighting. What she meant was get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. Because sometimes I was fighting the people that were there to help me. Sometimes I was fighting and resisting my own greatest good. So just reflect on maybe what is one lesson that you need to hold on to today that has been gifted to you? What is one lesson that you need to hold on to today that has been gifted to you? And finally, before I pull these cards, I just want to reflect on, again, thinking about my growing up family. I grew up in LA. My family's from Louisiana and Tennessee and Mississippi and Arkansas. And what I see now that I value, and I also realize that I do too, is the power of gathering. They gathered, they had a good time. They ate, they told stories, they cried together, they prayed, they stayed connected no matter what. And that, even in these times of pandemic, is something by all the means that I am holding tightly to. And I feel like with these cards, I'm striving to do that with them in spirit. So I am going to pull, it's called, the project, and you can get to it from my website, is called Dat, like Who Dat, D-A-T, Black Mermaid Man Lady. And the project has a lot of different arms to it. It was a show, it was a performance installation. I have these decks. It was just, it was all kinds of things. It was a mentoring project. But I'm gonna pull a Dat, Black Mermaid Man Lady, Dim Blessing. And with these blessings, originally, I was writing to my child self. I was like, dang, if I could just tell that child some things that I know now. Oh God, my heart was going out to that little queer bodied child. And, you know, like with all art, when you tend it, especially with my work, I work very deeply in community as I create and experiment with things. The pieces become themselves. And so I feel like it became about something else, but it started with this heart's desire to be in soul conversation throughout all the veils of time. So my question is always, what does infinite love want us to know? What blessing does infinite love want us to receive right now? And it's number 27. Remember, forgive yourself. You did the best you could. You were driven and hardworking. You were fiercely protective. And even when you were afraid, and you were afraid most of the time, you were courageous and powerful. Your determination broke open doors, shifted possibilities, repositioned life. Your sensitive soul, calloused by loneliness and shame, was still pierced by light. You took time to visit the ocean and dance and salt the air with laughter. You made it possible for me to soar. Thank you. So my prompt for you is, what do you need to forgive yourself for? What do you need to forgive yourself for? And if you really follow that, you'll probably need to take extra tender care of yourself and gather resource and find places and people to lean into. Let me check my time. Oh, good. Okay. I'm going to pull 3 that Black Mermaid Man Lady Oracle cards, and I'll offer 3 prompts. And so we can think of it as beginning, middle, end, however that sits for you. The artwork is by Yasmin Hernandez, just brilliant, soulful, amazing visual artist that I had the privilege of working with. The deck is, so I should say this. I chose to be baptized Baptist. I was a born again Christian when I was in my 20s. I'd spent my whole life, including my first year of college, in Catholic schools. I am an initiated priest to the force of nature in the Yoruba tradition called Yemaya. The Buddhist temples helped soften and save me in many ways. Marsha and them threw me in the sweats. So I feel like I just am a seeker in my soul and my spirit. Just pray and crave to be open. As I said, I specifically in my work look at African-American Southern migration histories and stories, which is my history and story. And so I'm in a lot of conversation with my own ancestors and with the spirits of that. So this deck kind of is holding all of that. So in this deck, there are 9 oracles. Each one is a character in the That Black Mermaid Man Lady show. The things that, and basically these are my ancestors, and they just kept talking. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna make you oracles and you can talk as much as you want to all the people that want to be in conversation with you. And so the things, each one speaks on 4 things. Each one has a blank card. If you get the blank card, it means you already know. And then each of them has 3 sets of text, and the text is actually from the script. But it is set within this Yoruba African-American Southern migration cosmology. It's an ancestor deck, so it's about love, and it's an ocean deck, so it's about what's under the surface. So my question is, what does infinite love want us to know right now? And please feel free to adjust that language in a way that feels useful for you. Okay. So the first one is joy. This is, in this cosmology, would be Oshun. This is about the fierce fire, the fierce energy of piercing beauty, of power and warriorness, of protocols and flowing creativity. And in the world of this piece, Miss Kitty was born merit and shifted as Merritt became himself as a singer who actually is Miss Kitty in their full selves. It's like the light became Merritt. Merritt said, Miss Kitty says love. Slice lived to make Miss Kitty happy, and Miss Kitty love he some slice. Eventually, Honeypot and them bring Miss Kitty and he sliced by old Kenny Sharp so the old man can see everything is all right now. So basically, everyone was afraid for Merritt because he had his heart was broken and he got caught up with some bad people. And so they sent, okay, we just have a few minutes. So they sent people from the community to go help Merritt, and Merritt made the choice to become himself. And after he became himself, who is Miss Kitty, they brought him back to his grandfather, who's old Kenny Sharp. And then there was like a peacefulness that everyone was able to live with. So my prompt for you is, what is the choice that you have the opportunity to make right now that you are afraid to make? What is the choice that you have the opportunity to make right now that you are afraid to make? Beginning. The next one, this is in the world of this piece, Sweetie Jr. Sweetie Jr., really Sweetie Jr.'s work is all about clarity. But before Sweetie Jr. came to clarity, Sweetie Jr. was running wild in them streets. And the dead people, Sweetie Jr.'s ancestors, kept kind of knocking Sweetie Jr. around. The old folks in the community kept kind of snatching Sweetie Jr. up, and Sweetie Jr. kept running. But eventually, Sweetie Jr. became herself, and she aligned with the clarity that was really her fully being herself. Sweetie Jr. says, detox. Apparently, Sweetie Jr. come from a long line of night keepers, say they could trace it all the way back to before and before. Yes, sir, Sweetie Jr. line, quite special. It what makes Sweetie Jr. used to act a fool sometimes. I call it the crazy gene. It that part that is so special, that piece of magic buried in the blood so deep that if you don't use it, it explodes your mind. Sweetie Jr. got that. Lucky for her, lucky for us. She time which she grand nana straighten out, she crazy. Line she genes and she mind up. With the forces powering through, she blood. So I feel like this is an instruction, detox. What can you do to release some things that you are holding that are not serving you right now? Sometimes it's a sea salt bath. Sometimes it's praying under the full moon light. Sometimes it's therapy, like whatever. What can you do that offers detox, offers release for yourself so that you can stand more fully in your light and in your power with grace? Last one, change, honeypot. So I don't know if you can see, but she got knives and guns and all these things, and she's a warrior. She's all about change. They say she would be Oya. They say if you call on her, the change, she gonna knock the whole house down, not just clean it. So be careful. Honeypots say, and boy, aren't we in times of change. Honeypot say transformation. Everybody mash in. We say we loves you, Honeypot. Honeypot, get back to moaning. David, he well. Honeypot, snatch more pretty up. More pretty say, I so sorry, Honeypot. Honeypot say, it's all right, little sister. Together, Honeypot and more pretty, they moan, they rock. We sing, yes, Lord, let it rest. They shake, yes, Lord, let it rest. This is about Honeypot choosing to forgive somebody that had done her wrong. Who do you need to forgive? And when and the whole community got involved, because Honeypot holding that grudge, it was like a huge disruption in the community, and it made Honeypot be off course. And the community loved and valued everyone in it, but especially what Honeypot brought to it. So they came together, they prayed, they sang, they, challenged her. And she chose to realign by letting this thing rest. Who do you need to forgive? All right, that's it. I could go on, but that's it. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Sharon, thank you for all those writing prompts. That's going to keep me busy for a while. And if you're out there listening, whether you're a writer or not, that's a lot of beautiful work to explore. So thank you so much, Sharon, for those offerings and all the creative context that brought us to those offerings. So we are winding down on time, but I want to make sure that we give Kim and Sharon a moment to respond to each other. And this is also your moment to drop questions in the chat. I think we do have one question already to start us off, which if you don't mind, Kim and Sharon, this could be a good way to start your conversation, because it was addressed initially to Kim, but I think both of you could address it. Is grounding different for everyone, or is there a specific way one should ground or find how you ground? So I'll toss it to Kim first, and then Kim and Sharon, you can both address that question.
Yeah, grounding for me, means that all my parts are present and I'm showing up as the best version available to myself in that moment. So that I've checked in with all those pieces that I was talking about, and just like making sure that I'm showing up in a way that is representative and grounded in the way that I want to show up, grounded in my ancestors, grounded in the fact that I believe love is an activating tool that can actually, like Kaya says, you know, darkness cannot overcome the light. And I think the more we activate love. So for me, it's grounding is addressing and attending to whatever is keeping me separate from that loving place and from that place of being that I let my doing arise from, so that it's not frenetic energy. And yes, it's different for everybody. Some folks go hug trees, some people sing, some people hum, honeypot rocked and sang. So it's like whatever that thing is that gets you to that spot, that you're clear, that you're not bringing harm. That to me is grounded. Sharon, what you say? Oh, wow.
Well, I have to say, I feel like what you offered was grounding. Like what you offered, what you shared with us, like this, the clear naming, the way things were broken down, and the affirming of the things that my body knows, like that was grounding. That was grounding. And I think that I need those reminders. I need that instruction more. Yeah.
And I want to say to you, Sharon, like when you started talking about like that you want to be in soul conversation with the ancestors, I was like, oh, the ancestors are up in here, because the questions you ask, like, and I love a good question. Anybody that knows me knows I love a good questions, because good questions lead to good answers, and good answers lead to good choices, and we can change some but
yeah.
through a good question. And so like when you ask like, who are your mentors or whatever we call them, what did they teach you? Like when I wrote that down, really what then came to me as an offering to all of us in breaking our colonized mind is it felt like those were my ancestors whispering things to me and holding visions of me until I could hold them for myself. So for those of us of bodies of culture, we struggle to see ourselves. But sometimes people around us that love us are telling us things about us that we can't fully accept. But if we could really begin to embrace that and accept that, like it's my mentors that have told me that I could be a good facilitator, that I should just bring who I am to the space and it would be enough. And I had to trust them. So there's that wisdom from the ancestors. And then like, what is one lesson that you can hold on to? I actually had a couple, but it reminded me again too, that wisdom doesn't just arrive and be settled, because the things that I know are that all things come with a gift in its hand. And for me, no matter the question, love is the answer. But those are statements. The practice is where it's at. So,
oh God,
yeah. So that felt like some wisdom the ancestors were giving us in your early reflections. So,
thank you, and thank them. Thank you, and thank all of them.
Sorry to interrupt. We got a couple of great questions in the chat that I want to make sure we get to. One of them is, how do you fight the white supremacist culture of urgency and perfectionism?
Yeah, for me, I don't fight it, because whatever I fight, I create more of. So I don't. Yeah, I really, that's a thing for me. And it really has to shift inside of ourselves, just like we would not show up to a meeting stinking. Like if we come grounded, it shifts our capacity to be with white supremacy culture and speak to it in ways that can move it and shake it. But if we are in that energy, then we can't really speak to it because we are of it. Ooh, somebody write that down.
Yes. Yes. I
don't know where that came from, but thank you. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So the answer being shift the energy before you try to address it. Yeah. Sharon, what do you say?
Yeah, same. For me, because I was always focused on my family and my internal growth, I'm just fascinated by them and just so mesmerized, in love with them and angry at them, like all of that stuff. I was focused on my own history. So I did tons of research, tons of conversations, tons of inner reflect. So the focus was in and was what was holding me and around and through me. So yeah, not focusing on white supremacy or white people at all, but the brilliance that allowed me to be here, that holds and allows me to be here. And I feel like I have some white friends who do the same thing. My Irish buddy, who's a poet, a German friend who's a writer, you know, yeah.
Here's another great question. Was there a particular catalyst or impetus that encouraged you to research and study your ancestry? And that's a question for both Kim and Sharon.
For me, it's been a long journey. I grew up in LA. Like I said, I was born in '58, but you know, grew up in LA during like all the riots and all of this stuff. And I got sent south a lot, and I was queer. And there was no language, there was no way for me to understand my insides. And I just felt like I was wrong, like something was wrong with me. And so I thankfully came from, in Memphis, my great aunts were teachers. So the value of education and reading was given to me early on. And so I read a lot. So my natural response was to write later, but I didn't share my work until I was 30. And that was only because, well, that's a long whole other story. A cute girl was involved, but anyway, but it's always the cute girl. So anyway, but I should say making more focused leaps towards it was Marcia, Sharima Raga, Raul Salinas, like people that they saw me, they looked at me and they saw me and they decided that I was theirs. And so then they just pushed me and I just did things that I wouldn't have otherwise. I was too terrified to do. And they pushed me towards, you know, that circle, that work.
Thank you. Kim, do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, for me, I was raised in a Native community, so I didn't have a choice. My challenges in healing around racial justice, though, came around microaggressions and stereotypes around Native Americans and just all the commentary around Native American country and the wounding we have inside of ourselves and how colonized mind also separated us from our indigenous brothers and sisters and folk to the South, you know. So there's just, for me, the racialized work that needs to be done inside of Indian culture is inside and outside. But the ancestry, I could just check and spit them off for generations. It was part of the, yeah, part of the everyday conversation, sitting around the elders' feet.
I would like to speak to that question for a second because there's this way, so I'm a mixed race person as an Arab American of Lebanese descent on my father's side and white American on my mother's side. And there's this way in which whiteness has made itself or pretends to be a culture, which it is not. And so sometimes white folks have a hard time with the ancestry question because they don't know where to go. And I will also say folks of color whose family or ancestral histories have been cut off from our knowing or access, our access to it, also suffer this like lack of groundedness because we don't know who our people are. And one of the most powerful things I've found in some of this work is the invitation to go find your ancestors, to figure it out, to dig, to learn, to study, to find a mentor. And we can define ancestors in all kinds of ways. Sometimes they're queer ancestors, you know, sometimes they're literal, biological, historical ancestors, and sometimes they're the folks who have said, you are part of my community. And so if that's a hard question for you, the ancestor question, which it has often been for me, the invitation is to investigate that and search for it as a way of grounding yourself. I know that we need to wrap up, although I feel like I want to hang out with y'all forever, all day. Please give some love and appreciation and thanks to Kim and Sharon in the chat. And I'm going to pass it back to Oscar for some closing out, and I'll also put some more resources and links in the chat. Thank you both, Kim and Sharon, and thank you, Oscar and Houston Action.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you both too for leading us through this. I did want to highlight that there was a question if people want to share in the chat as well as who you're personally finding nourishing right now. And I think they were asking from some Insta recommendations or something on social media that they can follow. So if you all want to give any recommendations, feel free to use the chat as we're closing off. I want to thank everyone who joined us today. But before you head out, I do want to definitely encourage you to check out a lot of the work that we've been doing, especially amongst the beautiful artists that we were lucky enough to fund through the H-Town Votes initiative. If you go to our website, you can go to HoustonAction.org/art-votes. You can also check out other trainings that we have available coming up from now until leading up to next year, as we're going to be updating that calendar at HoustonAction.org/calendar. And we do want to hear from everybody how you felt about this training, any thoughts, any feedback you might have. We do read all the feedback that y'all give us, so the more feedback we have, the better, as we want to see that our trainings are successful, that they're helping you out, and that we can hear from you. So this is case sensitive, but if you want to go to bit.ly heal1109, that's bit.ly/HEAL1109. It only takes about 3 or 4 minutes to fill it out, and your feedback is greatly appreciated. So once again, bit.ly heal1109. If you can join us there by giving some feedback through our session today, we really, really appreciate it. So it is Monday. We're starting the week off, and I'm feeling way more calm and zen right now after being in this training with all of you. So I want to thank our amazing panelists and Andrea for helping us put all this thing together. And I want to thank all of you who took the time to join us today. I just realized I probably wasn't sharing here we go. That's what I meant to do. So if you go to our website, or you can see I'll also link this information in the chat so you can have access to it. That would be a little easier. So once again, that's H-Town Votes. Hashtag H-Town Votes if you want to check out what the artists have been up to. We were very, very fortunate to fund over 10 different artist projects. I'm super excited to see all the beautiful, funny, healing, amazing things that came out of that space. So please check it out and then give us your feedback. And I guess that'll be it for today. Thank you all for joining us. We'll catch you next time as we hope to continue the progress that we have been able to do to these trainings. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your Monday, and hopefully we can continue to build stronger together.